So knowing that we're in a position of perhaps getting cut during this time, how do we mitigate this? And here are some strategies you can do that. So I don't know if many of you are familiar with this quote from Theodore Levitt. He's a Harvard School business professor. And his message was, people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole. And the message here is the marketers and the people who are winning today are those who are laser focused on solving an immediate problem for the customer. So they're not necessarily focused on selling what they sell, but what outcome does it provide for the client? And this comment is more true than ever as we go through, as businesses are buying Zoom for teleconferencing, Slack for online collaboration, and consumers are dropping personal services in favor of products. So there's a little graph here for you. Italy was first hit when COVID hit last year. They were one of the first companies to be hit hard. And even though they were hit economically, people were spending disproportionate amounts of money on products. So there's a 236% increase in Amazon sales on sports and outdoor equipment, and we're seeing that here as well. So if anybody has had the pleasure of trying to go buy a bike or any outdoor equipment lately, you'll find there's long lineups and that type of thing. So people are buying products. It's not like people are not spending money anymore. They are buying products. And we're buying less of services. So Peloton's a really good example. People are buying less gym services because you can't have group classes, and it seems like the restrictions are changing daily or weekly, but what they are is buying the product to work out at home. So Peloton sales and their stock price, they increased by 13% since the start of the pandemic, and we expect this to rise as people are coming in. Again, they're buying the service, but they're buying in a productized way. Not only that, we're not going to the movies or restaurants anymore, so we're buying a lot more booze. So sales of booze has increased by about 75% since the start of the pandemic. Particularly with spirits like tequila and vodka, year over year from this year to last year. So people are still buying these products. So a good example of this, and I'll get to the 8 steps on how to do this. A company called Gorilla Tacos in Los Angeles that did a really good job. They were a fantastic customer experience where people would go to dine, but with restrictions that were placed in their area, they realized that they could no longer sell the in-person dining experience. So what they did was they evolved from the dining experience in the restaurant to a product. Okay, so what they did is they developed the emergency taco kit product, and for $155, they labeled this as a signature kit. And as you can read on the screen, 60 ready-to-eat tacos at $2.50 a taco. They list the ingredients, which I'll get into there, and they have their value proposition on this as well. And it comes with a roll of toilet paper, 5 pounds of chicken, carne asada, and so on and so forth for $150 roughly. So what they did was they took this great service they had at their restaurant and they productized it. And it's not just restaurants that can do, which I'll show you as we go through. Another example here is a mobile car wash and detailing company. They used to go to your home and detail your car, great service, or your office. But they realized now with COVID restrictions, they couldn't just sell that as as car detailing and making your car really clean. So they repositioned to vehicle disinfection. So the point here is that how you position your services is really critical as well. Now, these are just 2 examples of 2 companies. But at the end of the presentation, you'll see how you can apply this to your own business going forward. So the key thing is to be nimble in the process. Another company here is a company called Encore. They're a talent booking service, as many of us are craving the ability to go and watch live music. This company booked live music for restaurants, bars, and small concert venues, wineries, etc. They couldn't do that anymore. So that experience was taken away. So they had to productize the service. And what they did was they sold personalized music messages recorded in the artist's homes that were sent to people on video recordings for special occasions, or just for any occasion, just to lighten people's moods and make them happy. So personalized birthday messages for friends and so forth. So these are some exemplary products that they had, and to have a celebrity singing you happy birthday. Since COVID hit and they've done this, they haven't felt too much of a dip. They kept their artists happy, even though these people's lives, the rug was pulled right completely almost from underneath them. So good examples of how to productize a service. And you can order your own personalized messages from them. So all this to say, that was just a warm up. On the heart of my message here is 8 ways or 8 steps to productize your service. Okay, so the first step I encourage you to do is niche down. Now, what I mean by that is you all understand your businesses. You understand who your customers are, hopefully. The purpose of this is to consider who your customers are as far as the demographics, the age, gender, and income that you sell to. The company size, industry, so in other words, the firmographics. The life stage, where they're at of the customer life stage. Are they just married, retired? Are they interested in purchasing your services now or perhaps in the future? How do you accelerate that customer journey? And where's the company life stage? So if you're selling business to business, where are they at within that stage as well? So you take these things into consideration, including the psychographics, and you niche down. Now, this can be an uncomfortable experience for you, but I encourage you to just become very focused on one thing or two things because it makes you highly referable as well. So an example of this is a digital agency that's specialized in working with their clients. And what they did was they just narrowed the hourglass completely down and developed mastermind sessions for a specific niche of their market that they felt was most profitable and had the most opportunity for success. So if there's an opportunity for you to take what you do and niche it right down, I know it seems counterintuitive because you're narrowing your market, but if you productize your service and you offer a specific service to that market, it will benefit you in the long term because it makes it easier for people to refer you as well. So this particular agency here, they focused exclusively on working on providing their services, but in a productized manner as advice. Okay, so another opportunity here was a company that did customer experience and user experience audits. So they created a hands-on guide, again, a product, not necessarily a service. And they listed the design challenges that their clients may have, and they focused in on that. So in other words, niche down to a particular segment so you could focus on exactly providing value for them and become a leader in that segment of the industry. So for some of you who may deal with someone in a construction industry at large, maybe just focus on plumbers or electricians or something like that. Become an expert in your field. This is a perfect time to do it as we're in the middle of the pandemic and going forward, is to productize your service and become an expert. The next step on this, step 2, is discover what's teachable, valuable, and repeatable. So these 3 aspects of your business are very important, and not just now, but going forward and always, is you focus on what is easily teachable to your employees. So something that your employees can be taught, something that is valuable to your customers, and something that can be repeatable. So repeatable purchase cadence, meaning that it's a recurring revenue stream, or something that they buy once and then they buy monthly or quarterly, and also something they can refer. Because if you're doing this, it's easier as you onboard and scale, not only your employees, but as you scale customers and markets, if your niche gets larger, as to build on our last point, and how you can increase the repeatable size. So don't always keep reinventing the wheel. So just as it is to simplify in niching down, also discover what's teachable, valuable, and repeatable. So a good exercise for this is if you take a list of all the services you currently provide and you pick one niche, rank yourself out of 10 in each of the areas of how teachable it is to your employees, how valuable it is to your customers, and how repeatable it is going forward. So if something is very difficult to teach your employees and only a few people can do it, it would rank lower score to 10. But if it's something that could be taught to a lot of people so they can actually fulfill that within your team, how much value your clients place on this. In other words, if you're selling a service that's going to help them propel their business forward, it's very valuable to them. And how repeatable is it? So one-offs aren't necessarily the most important or things you can't do. So for example, if you're doing some form of engagement that takes 6 months to do, and it's very focused on just one client, that's not very repeatable. But if it's something where you can help people understand how to manage their cash flow, for example, that's repeatable. And there's elements of that that are very teachable, and of course it's very valuable. So it's just a small example, but always remember that acronym, my bad, teachable, valuable, repeatable, and what's that solution that provides. So the third point on this, or the third step, is be very clear on your quarter-inch hole. So as we mentioned earlier with the quote that was from Harvard Business Review, what is the job to be done for the client, right? So just as when we shop, we're buying groceries, but actually we're buying nutrition, We go to school, we're actually not buying school, we're buying education. What is the outcome that the client is looking for? So going back to the example of Gorilla Tacos and what they did with their trying to transfer their great experience and their service into a product, what they did was they said, okay, what is it that people want? They want a unique experience, they want to eat, and they want to be satisfied. The way to do that is they developed this taco kit that we explained earlier, and that's the 1/4 inch hole in that case, is like, what's the job to be done for the customer? The 4th step is branding it. So if you are currently known in the marketplace as someone who provides a great service, like for example, a laundry service or accessibility design, or some of the great people that are on this call from the list that I had, you may have those services, but make it very easy for people to understand what you're offering. So brand what you have. So what Gorilla Tacos, I'll use them as an example again. They developed an emergency taco kit. It's easy to remember the name, and it's a survival pack that people have. So they have Disinfect and Protect, that was the car wash company. And we look back to that music company, it's a personalized music message. So again, it's branded. The reason that it's important to brand this is that people remember it and they can order it easily. And you've taken those services, all those great things you've done, and now you have a nice product. And I'd be glad to explain how, as we get into the questions section, particularly how that relates to your business. Next step, the 5th step, is listing your ingredients. So I don't mean just for restaurants here on listing your ingredients, but here's an example. So what is included in your product that you're offering? So if you show people what's actually included in the product, they know what they're getting and they can see the value in that beyond guessing, right? You don't want people to guess that. So here's what I'm getting, here's what I'm paying, and here's what it's called. So list your ingredients, what you're getting, because it's very important to have that as well. So another company that did a good job of this is a service company called Data Stories. So businesses currently are drowning in data. This isn't just a COVID or pandemic thing, but with this data, it's easier than ever to track what customer sentiment is, but it's hard to figure out how to take actionable steps to make this work. So what Data Stories did is they helped companies actually do something with their data. So you provide them a spreadsheet or a data source to this company, and then within a few days, they send you an interactive report on that. Now, the benefit of what they're doing is they created a system. Now, this isn't anything new to anybody who's had a phone plan or anything like that, but you can see the benefit of naming it. So they branded here, Professional Enterprise and Data Stories Toolbox. They've listed the ingredients, and then they show a price as well on this. So that's just a good example how it all comes together. Instead of people guessing what you do or looking like it's science behind a curtain, list the ingredients, brand it, and have a price, and you'd be farther off from that. Next thing you want to do is preempt objections. What I mean by this is that as we're all out in the marketplace, myself included as a consultant selling our services, when we're face to face, it's very easy if someone has an objection to say, well, I'm not ready for this right now, or can we do it a different way? You don't necessarily have that opportunity if we're not face to face. So what you want to do when you productize your service is to preempt that objection by identifying the pain points that people may have and then tackling it head on. So in other words, provide people with things like 100% satisfaction guarantee, demonstrate your qualifications, for example, that you're insured and bonded, you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, something like that, that you're environmentally friendly, and that you're highly trained. So when people see this, they don't have a chance to head for the hills and run out the gate. They're understanding that it's your product, and it preempts the objection on that as well. 7th step here is publish a price. Now, a lot of people think that's counterintuitive, because if you put your price out there, then people will know your price and your competitors will come at you and undercut your prices. They may, but if you've done a good job at doing all of the other things, people want to know the price. And it's actually easier to share and grow this if people understand the price, so you're not in a lot of price negotiations. It actually helps to narrow the funnel of who your clients actually are. So those who don't want to pay that price probably aren't your customer anyways. And it also enables you to say, here's what it is, here's what you're getting for this price. It doesn't mean you have to have one price. You could have 3 prices, as we looked at earlier. So you can have an introductory, a medium price, and then the higher end price. And this is a good example. There's a company, it's a book publishing company, and they've done a really nice job on this. So even consider this as your, sorry, my bad. As you're developing your web content or landing pages or that type of thing, you can see they've done a really nice job here. They've named it, they branded it, they have the pricing here, and people can pre-qualify of what they're looking for. So what this company does is, if you have a book, they publish it for you. So you can either self-publish, you can have a guided author help you through the process, which is a service they offer, but now it's productized. They have a professional service that does that. And then they have an elite service, which is a ghostwriting where the author is very involved and it's a custom quote, so call for a quote. The point is here is that niche down into the areas that you want to serve. Again, name it, brand it, list the ingredients and go from there, and then determine what you get. So this is an example here, again, as I've highlighted in orange of what that looks like, and you can easily implement that in your site. And then make it easy for people to buy. So what you want to do is have a landing page. This isn't a marketing seminar, but as you know, the easier it is for people to connect and convert on your website, the better it is. So you see here an example. This is a company called Bench. What they do is accounting and bookkeeping services. Another great example of having a price, productizing the service, and going from there. Because a lot of times with bookkeeping services, for example, and I've talked to my bookkeeper about this as well, and she's embraced this, is that people have the perception that bookkeeping is bookkeeping, which it's not. There are good ones and there are not so good ones. But if you have everybody relying on the service and explaining it fully, if you make it easier for people to understand and get into your tent and come through at different stages, then you can survive and thrive in this environment with a productized service of what you're doing. And actually, you can have an opportunity to graduate people up through there after you do assessments and that type of thing, which I can talk about in the Q&A. And the last step in the 8 steps here is to manufacture scarcity. So now that you have a product, of course, when we're service providers, our billable hours are our least, is the most scarce time, and there's only so much capacity we have. What productizing your service does is provide you with more capacity and allows you to fill your funnel nicely as well. And also, I would contend that if you move from a service-based to a product-based version of your service business, that you make the transition from being project-based rather than a contractor that's just trading billable hours, which is, it's not as durable and long-lasting as it is to have a product. So when you manufacture scarcity, things like limited time offer, few people coming into the mix are what's going to benefit you in that sense there. So pardon me with the slide here. So that's what's going to do it. So manufacture some form of scarcity for your product as you go through, and then have people come in where they have a consultation and go from there. But if you make it seem like it's an endless offer, it doesn't have that same sense of urgency. So a little bit of marketing 101 on that. So I'm going to open the floor now to questions. I'd love to answer your questions on this and discuss how you're going to apply this to your business.
All right, James, thanks for sharing that. I'm going to suggest something. We have a group, smaller group today. I'd like to move all of you into panelists and bring you into the conversation more fully to make sure you get value out of this. But I don't want to do that if you prefer not to be moved. Whether you turn your camera on, that'll be up to you. But I would like to move you all so we can have a group discussion around some of the points that James has discussed. Before doing that, if you prefer not to and want to stay just as an attendee, if you could indicate in the chat function. Otherwise, Donna, Megan, Melissa, Shabir, and Tessa, I'm going to bring you in as a panelist. So I'll give you a second to respond to that. What I'd like, James, for you to do, just make it a little clearer for you. You covered a lot of ground in a short period. The productization, yes. Is it being accelerated because of the pandemic, or productization of service is a different approach to business?
I would say it's a different approach to business, but it's accelerated in the pandemic because the first people to get flipped essentially are people who are seen as outside consultants, and people are not seeing the value. So they're tending to, for lack of a better term, internalize or turtle a little bit, businesses are. But if you find a way to sell them something of value as a product versus a service that may be a little bit more nebulous, this is easier for you to grow your business coming out of that.
Okay, so just some have indicated they weren't prepared to move into panelists, so we'll leave it the way it is. But if you have a question, you can use the Q&A function or chat. We also value your time as much as ours, so we won't extend it too long, but we'll cover a couple questions that we had in advance. James, can you walk quickly through if a small business is looking at initiative or approaching what you've talked about? Is it an onerous process? Is it just a discipline? Is there costs associated with that? Is this something they could do on their own?
That's a good question.
A little bit more details about that.
Yeah, it's something that people can do on their own, following those 8 steps to do that. I mean, obviously, if they needed further guidance, that's there. But if people understand their business, this is just essentially a different lens of looking at how to offer your services. So typically, a lot of the time with service providers, we're going out there and not actually having a product that people can buy. So it's actually making it difficult for people to buy the service. For example, consulting services. When I go to, I offer, business consulting. Well, what does that mean? So when the pandemic hit, and just as it hit, I developed a recovery, a resiliency program. So, and then listed the ingredients. So if you go to my website, for example, valuedriver.ca, you'll see an example of that. It lists the ingredients, it names it, and then goes forward. So like a recovery and a resilience program. One of the women, I believe, is Donna on the call.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a accessibility design company, from what I understand from the list I provided. So an example of that company, I don't know exactly what your services are, but that to me is a service where it's very important, but people may not know what that encapsulates. So you may want to have 3 different services. One may be an assessment for, a certain age group, or it might be a certain ability or that type of thing. And then you list the things you provide. So it could be in-home assessment, recommendation of different type of tools, materials, and maybe an ongoing thing. The next one could have a list of 4 items and 5, whatever the case may be. So.
Excellent. Okay. There's a question from Tessa. Good morning. I'm wondering how I might productize something like a laundry service. Most specifically as it relates to step 1 of finding a way to niche down. It's such a broad-based business across multiple demographics. It feels I'm constantly reacting rather than being proactive. I'm not sure how to really create that niche or create that product. Great question, Tessa. Thanks.
That's a fantastic question, Tessa. So first of all, let me ask you, who is your typical customer? Is it, male, female, age group, and what stage of their life are they at?
All right.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure if she's responding real quick, so we might have to make some assumptions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tessa, we have you in verbally now if you want to comment.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
absolutely.
All good.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I have 2 sides to my business. I have the commercial side and then I have the residential side. So on the residential side, it tends to be mainly families. Okay. And on the commercial side, then smaller businesses. I lost some of my larger clients because they pulled stuff in-house. So that's affected my business dramatically this year.
Okay. So which one are you looking to, we'll pick one and then we'll see how it translates in that. So I can walk you through the scenario. So if you give me a scenario of which one of the clients you want to run down. So if it's the commercial or the residential.
So I'm thinking residential, and the reason, sort of the idea that I had is one of the reason I started the business was as a mom of 3, I'm so busy all the time. And that made it sort of, the idea came to make that a product that busy families would be able to utilize to help give them back their time, because nobody wants to do laundry. So taking that off your plate and making that the idea that I'm creating this efficiency for you. And so that's the service I'm thinking about as a niche in the sense that people have asked me things like, are you able to come into our house and help with laundry? And that's not something I do, but I'm wondering if that's something I could be considering in terms of charging an hourly rate to organize laundry rooms and kind of get people set with a plan for their week to make that easier for them.
It's a really good point. So I agree with you. What you're selling is actually not laundry services. You're selling time, right? So that's the outcome you're selling. That's your quarter-inch goal, is you're selling time.
Right.
And so going into people's homes now is a little bit tricky with COVID, but if you are comfortable with that, one of your packages could include recommendations for how to organize your laundry. So in other words, you know, even if you show people, hey, colors this day, here's how you organize the laundry. How do you organize the laundry room? And then have it so that you know, how many times you would come in and do that laundry in a week, for example, and then translate that into what that equates for them for time. So your package one could be, I'll organize your laundry room, separate the colors, give you some instruction on that, and it buys you 5 hours per week. What would you do with an extra 5 hours in your week?
Okay.
And then you say spots are limited. And then the nice thing about this is, if once you have a system like that, and then maybe 3 different buckets of that, right? Where one is the exclusive, one's the medium, and then one's the lower end, with the middle being where you want most people to land. You can then hire people because it's teachable, valuable, and repeatable. Going back to that, because if it's a teachable thing for your employees, they know when they go into someone's house, they look for these 5 things, right? Where's the laundry soap? What laundry soap are they using? Where is it located? All that type of thing. So they do an assessment checklist. It's valuable to the client because they're buying the time. And then it's repeatable because you can, if you have it very efficient, you can get in and out of there very quickly and make that happen. The only thing, the delay on time, that is actually waiting for the laundry machine to work. So I'd actually look at if people would prefer to have their laundry taken out of their home so that you're in there and then you're out of there and you come back, so they can go for a bike ride rather than wait for you to be in their home. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with hanging out with you, but people might want to just get on.
I don't want to.
And you don't want to be in there. So you could say, hey, we come in and we're in and out of your home in half an hour, and we save you 3 hours, and then you really promote what they could be doing with their time.
And I'm thinking about so I don't want to necessarily right now go into people's homes, but I thought about how to create something like a handout or something that would allow them to maybe, or videos even, that would allow them to be able to do it themselves at this point, and later on, as we kind of get through this pandemic period, to allow that to be an in-person service, and then that would be more of a premium service.
Absolutely.
So that's
so
sort of what my thinking is.
Yeah, sorry to talk over there, my bad.
No, that's okay.
So you could have like a laundry consultation, no different. If you look at the example of, you know, the musicians that couldn't be booked to go in, well, you know, one of the strong benefits of your service is that they get you one-on-one and you have this expertise. But the thing is, they could get you on a Zoom call, and you
That's
could,
true.
you know, when we talked about a guarantee or show that your, you know, validation on there, you could say, I guarantee I could save you this much a year on laundry costs, and also how much time you can buy them back in that, and then equate what that time would be like and what they could do. So if you're saving them 30 hours in a year, you could say in 30 hours, you could hike Knox 5 times or whatever the case may be, but make it really localized and make it fun like that. And then people would equate that to what they're buying, which is time.
It's really ironic because that's how I started.
Okay.
In terms of my advertising, how much time I'm saving you, you could do this, you can do that in that period of time. And then I sort of moved away from that. So maybe it was where I needed to be.
Yeah. And if it's sold as a product like that versus a laundry service, because then people are like, oh, laundry services are all the same. What's that? I could do without it right now. I'll just do it on my own. But if you explain to them that, you know, hey, I'm buying you back some time, especially now when, you know, people are going a little stir crazy of staying inside their own homes, right? They want to get out and do other things.
Yeah. So very quickly, we have a couple other questions too, Tessa, but we'll keep you going, Tessa, just for a second here, because I want James to respond just on observation, looking at some of the 8 tips and getting ahead of what potential objections, right? So security, cleanliness, environmental, getting that stuff up front. Is that what you talked about? I mean, and we're certainly promoting, you know, think local as best you can. So here's a good example of way, you know, you could think local, think secure, think environmental, and then make sure in the marketing strategy you get that information up front to get ahead of those things. Is that what you're talking about, James, a little bit too, on that one point? Yeah.
Absolutely. So you wouldn't want to do is really promote what your advantages are. And I really like the idea, Dan, of saying it's local. So we're a local Kelowna company. We understand, the needs of Kelowna families or whatever the case may be. Another area you might want to focus on too is by following your tips, there's a risk that people don't damage their clothing, which is another cost that could occur at this, right? So, but yeah, to your point, and it's like all those things you want to really focus in on those features and benefits that you offer that could really add value.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you so
Tessa,
much.
that help? Yeah,
You're welcome.
excellent. Great. Thanks. I'm going to move on to a couple more questions. Melissa Clark, who also says, hi, James. Has a question with respect to my business offers construction accounting services. So very niche market. The slogan, streamlining construction companies for profitability and growth.
Okay.
Is that slogan her product? Is that tangible enough, or any advice you would give? And Melissa, we can make you live, at least audio-wise, if you want to get into the conversation. But James, to you first on that.
I think it's great to get people in the door, so it allows people to know what they're doing as far as the accounting side of it is concerned. Again, you might want to offer 3 packages on that. So you might want to have, I'm going to ask you this question, Melissa. Who are your typical clients, this range of them? Is it from the small GC all the way up to a large company?
So, Melissa,
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I'm starting to figure out how to turn that on. My market, they're small to medium-sized general contractors. So once you get into the larger size, and they usually have controllers in-house, where the small to medium-sized guys usually don't have the resources to hire somebody that has my specific skill set. So they end up using their spouse or their interior designer or a receptionist to do their bookkeeping because they're just trying to cover all their bases.
100%. So you found a really nice niche here, which I really think is great. What I would say is to put it into their frame of reference. So if I was hiring a general contractor, I wouldn't hire a painter to do my plumbing, right? So I would put it into that frame of reference where you are you're a qualified expert within that field to do that. And then have the packages. Again, this kind of comes down to branding it and then listing the ingredients. So based on who your clients are, offer them different packages or products they can choose from that have those ingredients. So some of them might need QuickBooks integration. Some of them might need some consulting on when to file their GST remittances. And some of them might be, the value that a great bookkeeper does is understands their industry so that they can communicate with their accountant. And I think a lot of these people, they just don't have time. Again, it's a time issue. It's a finite resource, particularly now for GCs. I'm sure they're run off their feet. Yeah. And also you simplify the process. You take all the mystification out of this so they can have more hours in their day to focus on what they do best. And those are then billable hours for them.
So would you say that my slogan that I put in there, so streamlining construction companies for profitability and growth, is that the product? Is that tangible? Is that what is that turning it from a service to a product?
I think
that's worded.
That's the umbrella with the overarching, and then within that you could have your product. So okay, so that's the why and the what you do. The product is how you do it in a sense. So my package A is an introductory. I'm just going to use these terms. Introductory project. What I do is I organize your receipts. I provide you with quarterly reports. I file your GST. Okay, boom. Option 2 is the intermediate package. And what you do in that case is you do all the things I just mentioned, but you provide some advice on some planning, or you connect them with other subject matter experts, perhaps a financial planner or an accountant or whatever the case may be, without overstepping your bound. And then the ultimate package is you meet with them quarterly to go over this and that. So I really like what you're doing. You found a really good niche. It's then within that determining what those packages, so it's easier for people to refer it. And then as you scale up, then if you bring on junior bookkeepers, you might want to give them just the introductory clients that are in package A. And then you can graduate people up through those packages as well. The nice thing about your business, I'd see how it would relate nicely to become a preferred supplier for Canadian Home Builders Association or Shuswap Construction Association or Southern Interior Construction Association, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then you can offer packages unique to them. But as long as people know what they're getting, so they're not just saying, well, I go to my bookkeeper and a bookkeeper's, no, this is the 5 things I get, and she delivers on time and that type of thing.
Great, thank you very much.
And one quick point, Melissa, is that when I send out the deck, which will come to you after the class or after this session, there will be examples in there that I showed on the slide. And I granted there's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but there's one of the slides that is about a bookkeeping company. Pay particular interest to that and have a look and see how that rolls out for you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. And just to build on that, James, any thoughts based on your background on slogan development, and how does that change in your tagline slogan when you productization of your services, or does it continue to make sure it focus on the benefit to your customer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's important to not deviate too much. So you have your value prop that you've developed for your company, but make sure that your products are aligned with that, and it should always be aligned with what your customers value. So Melissa, you've done a really good job of that by, you know, demonstrating that you've identified who your customer is, what you do for them, and then the products go from there. So your question, Dan, on that is that, yes, you should have your overarching slogan, but I would caution people from changing their slogan time and time again. Just change the products within that.
Okay. And we have a question from Shabir. Can you suggest an idea on how a hotel offering rooms can do what you are recommending?
Really good question. And here's the thing. Again, as we talked about, the Tessa's Laundry service provides time. Melissa provides time as well, and she provides expertise. What a hotel, I think, is providing an experience. So if you were to go to the marketplace, and the chamber is a perfect place to do this, is to collaborate with other service providers and provide packages. So for example, it's takeout, you know, or some local restaurant that can provide, you know, the room stay plus a meal, or some type of, you know, if people are still allowed to go outside and do things at a Oyama zip line, for example, or something like that, package the service so you have different types of offerings for the family that comes in. So if you have a family package, it may include dinner for 4, an event, and a room stay, versus just buying a room stay. Because what that'll do is separate you from all the different hotels are there, regardless if you have a restaurant there or not. Ideally, it's almost better if you don't, because then you can have a package that involves a lot of different restaurants or a lot of different services in the community. That's a great question, because what it does allows you to really collaborate, as I mentioned, with people who are ideally other chamber members or people in our community.
So Shabir, I've made it possible for you to communicate with us. Does that help answer your question? Your mic is available to use.
Yes, it does. I mean, we've tried various options along those lines of packaging with very limited success, and I'm just looking for other possibilities of things that we may want to try out. And part of that challenge is also marketing it out there, and that always, you know.
So James, any advice that you can give? Sorry, go ahead, James.
Yeah, no problem. It's a really good question. So can I ask you, you know, if you don't want to identify your hotel or whatever, but if you can, that's great. So if your typical client that you're looking to attract, is it people who are having a staycation in the province? Is it a family? Is it a couple? Is it someone who just wants to get away?
I'll be happy to. It's the Royal Anne Hotel right downtown. So typically we cater to couples that are not families, because we don't have a swimming pool or anything to that effect. So we're looking for our demographic is couples.
Right. Right. And quite often, you know, when people are leery now to stay at Airbnb. So here's something that I think would be interesting in because I've been looking at hotel industry for a bit. So somewhat people are a little leery of Airbnbs because the quality of the cleaning may not be as consistent as a hotel. But one thing Airbnbs do that hotels don't, and I'm sure you're seeing this as a threat to your industry, or it could be, is that a good Airbnb host will leave a list of things to do in the room or in the condo when you rent it. But you can get out ahead of that and say, are you coming to Kelowna as a couple? Here's our couples package. And it could include things that are not necessarily monetary, but some advice on, hey, Knox Mountain, here's the things to do in the area. And then if you align yourself with the other local restaurants downtown, I mean, Antico Pizza's right across the street from you. Maybe you talk to Tony there. I'm just using him as an example. Hey, I'm developing this package. Here's the 5 things I have on the list. Would you be interested in, you know, being a part of this? Or even if it's a takeout service, or visit this patio, because you can guide the experience for people if it's packaged. Because a lot of times people come to town, again, the constraint here, there's always three common constraints: time, people, and money. Time is of the essence here. So if you're coming in for a 48-hour stay in Kelowna and you're spending 7 hours of your time trying to figure out what to do, I would value that so much if someone guided that for me and say, here's package A, package B, package C, and we've negotiated proprietary rates for you to do these things. So when you show this pass or whatever you're doing, now they've got a package and they can go to these different establishments and you engineer an experience for them.
Thank you.
So does that help?
No, it does help. It gives me some food for thought, and I'll certainly there are some variations of that you just struck some ideas for me. So thank you.
Yeah. And if you have a chance, Shabir, even to put that as on your website, just, you know, it's a quick page that you could have on there, some packages on there, people would see that. And first of all, when people see a package, they, for some reason, believe they're getting a deal, you know? Correct. So you could even raise your price and have a package and you'd be further out ahead of it. So what it does is distinguishes you from all the different hotels. You've got a great location, right? I live downtown and walk past your place quite frequently. So you've got a great location, but if you list the ingredients on there, I'm not suggesting you raise or lower your prices. That's entirely up to you. But when people see packages on your landing page of your website, they may be more apt to click through, and you know the messaging control is saying we've negotiated with local businesses to provide outstanding value, so your stay is memorable in the Kelowna area, whatever the case may be. Boom, it's right there. Yeah, right.
So James, thank you, James. If you could, thanks, Shabir. Build on that a little bit. You've mentioned a few times having, you know, different packages, and you almost make reference to the psychology of pricing with respect to having, thinking that out, having a premium, have the basic, and then having something in between to address, you know, the psyche of the mindset. Is that part of what you're suggesting in the productization of thinking of bundling potentially a product with some services to enhance the overall experience? And
yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. And to your point about the psychology of pricing, it's the Goldilocks strategy. So you want to give them the basic on the bottom end, but they feel like they're missing out if they don't go to the next. And then at the extreme far end is the high price, where they may go all in, but they probably pare down to the middle, and the middle is where you want people to land. But with a bundling strategy is really good. And what I like about that, it fits nicely with the "Okay, we got this" program that the chamber is offering, is that there's, and we're seeing in general with buying local and everything else. I think you could be very receptive on that, to have bundling with other providers. Now, you don't have to bundle with other companies, but there are things, that products and services within your own company that you can roll into this as well. So if, let's say, a hotel did have a restaurant, they could provide some, and this is not revolutionary thinking here, but you can productize this so that people don't have to choose their own adventure necessarily as nebulously. They can choose their own adventure 3 ways, if that makes sense. They're buying a product, they're not buying a service. Yeah.
And Shabir, certainly know the challenges your sector is facing, even with the most recent announcement by the Premier of limiting travel. But would you, in the COVID context, James, when you talk about that niche, could it be a geographic area that really customize your message to suit that local and frankly interior health region? Is a pretty big region that still people can travel in, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. That's a really good point. Like if you look at staycation and the benefits you have with staycation on that, people from, it soon will be a treat where we, people from, the shoe swap coming, Enderby or something, coming to Kelowna for the weekend. And they see as a treat. If they were to come and they had their adventure planned out for them, to Dan's point there, within the interior health region, you really have that opportunity where you promote to those people. And the beautiful thing about social media and Facebook is you could really geo-target those people. And if you go out and get ahead of that now, I think you're really well suited versus kind of sitting there, not suggesting you're doing this, but aggressively waiting for the phone to ring.
Right. All right, we're approaching the top of the hour, and respectful of time, want to wrap things up here. James, I just want to close by thanking you again for your support of the Chamber, your continued membership, and what you've provided today on behalf of those that attended. Thanks very much.
I appreciate it. And I welcome anybody to be in touch with me as well and go from there.
Yeah, and we'll look forward to, James will work with our team here, potentially get you back on Business Smarts down the road. So thanks for those that are joining. We will get the slide deck out and information to you shortly. We'll also make this recording available for folks to take a look at afterwards. So James, thanks very much for being with us, and I hope you enjoy your day. We look forward to chatting again.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Michelle. Take care.
And thanks everyone for joining us as well for this edition of Business Smarts. We do want to thank and acknowledge our presenting sponsor, Associa of BC. So thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing you on May 5th as we do a little deeper dive into women in business, investment strategies, personal and business strategies, and financial planning. Thanks, and have a great day.
Thank you.